Hey guys, chapter 19. It's called the Waterwolf. There were shrieks and yells as the water spread, forcing the spectators to flee to the dike. Someone started a song and soon they were all singing. It sounded lovely in the open air. At first they sang only folk tunes, but the songs became more and more patriotic. They began to sing about Pete Hine, who had conquered the Silver Fleet from the Spaniards, and the song which starts with "In the name of the Orange, open the gates." They were getting more and more reckless, as if, with the breaking of the dike, some restraint had been removed from the people. They finally sang William of Orange's song, the most forbidden of all. It made Dirk Jan and Joris tingle with emotion. Others felt the same. Men removed their caps. It was a solemn song, a prayer, and it was sung with piety by those people standing on the dike, surrounded by seeping water. Mother Verhagen had left the mill when she had heard the singing. She came in her apron, a shawl over her shoulders. She was holding Trixie in her arms, Koba and Betsy clinging to her skirts. They made a beautiful picture with the sun on their faces and the waves of the Norderar polder behind them. Mother joined in the singing with her clear soprano, adding a silver note. And then there was the sound of shots. Bullets whistled over people's heads. Big boots came splashing through the mounting water as German soldiers approached, wheeling bikes and barking out furious commands. "What's going on here?" the leader demanded. The soldiers obviously thought they had surprised a meeting of insurrectionists. The song died on everyone's lips. There was a strained silence. The president of the Polder Committee stepped bravely forward and spoke in German to explain to the corporal what had been happening. But the corporal was not pacified. He said that meetings were forbidden. Singing the national anthem was verboten. "This is a conspiracy against the Third Reich. All these people must be arrested." Even the bystanders who did not understand German could surmise what was happening. The president mustered his best German and spoke in deferential, soothing terms. It was not a political matter, he assured the corporal, only high spirits. If these people were arrested, the village could no longer function, for most of its essential workers were here: the baker, the farmers, the doctor, several teachers, the tailor, the carpenter. They were here to save the crops, to help save the crops. Weren't the Germans interested in saving crops? Meanwhile, Mr. Korn had an inspiration. He ran into his house and came back with a big bottle of cognac, which he had been saving for Liberation Day. He presented this to the corporal, whose face relaxed. There was no more talk of arrests. All the same, the people had to go. The soldiers made that clear. The work was done, so there was no reason to linger, and the crowd melted. Everyone scurried home as fast as he could, glad to have escaped a far worse fate. Finally, the soldiers judged that the insurrection had been suppressed and marched off too. Mother, father, and the children hurried to the Watchman. They were filled with foreboding. For a moment, they had enjoyed themselves and had felt free. And then the soldiers had come to remind them of their bondage. The sight of the brown water creeping over their lovely polder depressed them too. "But we'll take care of that," said father confidently. As they approached the Watchman, they heard Freya barking furiously. She was pursuing Leendert Schneiderhans, who was running for his life. Joris had never seen Freya so angry. She snarled like a wolf. He whistled for her, and immediately she turned and ran to him, her whole attention, friendly again, her tail wagging. From the distance, they could see Leendert shaking his fist at the dog. What was Leendert doing here? Had he discovered Hildebrand? What a sneaky thing to visit the Watchman when he knew everyone would be at the dike. "And I pleaded to save his father's farm," growled Mr. Verhagen angrily. Hildebrand came down the attic stairs when he heard the family come in. "You had a visitor here," he said, "and that dog of yours is a treasure. Do you know she was at him the whole time? He can't have had much of a chance to snoop. He wanted to go up the stairs, but she stood guard on those steps like a jail keeper. He couldn't get through, and then she lost her patience and bit his leg. Did he yell? Boy, he was off like lightning. She was after him. I could hardly keep from laughing out loud." Hildebrand seemed extremely amused, but the others weren't. They did not like the combination of German soldiers and a visit from Leendert all on the same morning. "You'd better keep Freya around the house," father warned Joris. "Leendert will have it in for that dog. He is quite capable of kidnapping her and presenting her to the German army, pups and all." Joris resolved to keep an eye on his dog. Now the race between the mill and the water began. Already the water surrounded the watchman. Father put still more sails on the wings, and they began to turn dizzily under Father's watchful eye. If they went too fast, Father turned the wing cross slightly out of the wind's eye, which slowed them up a little. The water kept rising that first day. It did not come into the mill, which stood on a small hill, but it seeped into the summer house and over Mother's vegetable garden. The little girls were delighted. They found an empty tub and went sailing, and it was shrieks of joy. The boys were too heavy. The tub sank when they got in it, but Puss could sail, though she did not like it, and looked over the edge of the tub with anxious eyes. Nothing but water. How was she to get home? So here, if you show you guys the picture of the girls in the tub. Actually looks like fun. So there we go. All night long, the watchman worked while the family slept, rocked by the sing-song of the wings, the lullaby of streaming water, and the trembling of the mill. Father and Hildebrand took turns watching, and gradually the water receded. The mill no longer stood like an ark among inundated fields. Grass and shrubbery appeared again, wet and untidy looking with stray straws and twigs and displaced objects. The polders emerged like people who have had a ducking. Father laughed triumphantly. "We've done it," he said on the third day after another sleepless night, and he rubbed his hands. Hildebrand, looking almost as tired as Father, quoted a verse by the great Dutch poet Vondel. "Our Lord the wind is chased with mighty roars, the water wolf whose teeth were nibbling at our shores." The results of the watchman's success were soon apparent. There was another deputation from the Norderer polder, and this time the farmers walked with firm steps and straight backs. They came to thank Father. Their polder had been drained in time and their crops had been saved. They brought a big cheese and a bag of wheat to express their gratitude. They proposed that Father should continue to mill both polders and they would pay him in food. Father consented. It was a great boon, for Mother had just announced that her larder was empty and had wondered how to replenish it, like their pantry, their food. The farmers around were no longer willing to part with their food for clothes or money, fearing shortages for themselves and their children. Now, however, the Verhagens could be sure of a steady supply. Mother was so pleased that when two small boys from Utrecht came to the door begging for food, she shared her wheat and cheese with them and made them sit down with a good plateful of boiled eel, the result of Father's nocturnal millings. The little boys were grateful. They warmed themselves at the stove and told Mother of the hardships of their journey. Joris listened wide-eyed. These boys were no older than himself. How could they have borne it all? They had walked for miles, pulling their little wagon, sleeping in sheds and haystacks, but everywhere the farmers had told them no, they were too short on supplies themselves. "But we had to go on, for we had to get food," said Dolf, the oldest boy, looking up with grave brown eyes. "Mother is in bed, you see, and there is a new baby." "It is a sister," he announced proudly. "Yes," nodded Tommy, "a sister." "And what are you calling her?" asked Mother. "Victoria," said Dolf, because there is going to be a victory. "We'll call her Tora for short," explained Tommy. They were wearing shoes without soles, and their poor feet were sore and swollen. Mother wished she had clogs to give them. However, she managed to find some stout cardboard, which she cut up to the right shape and put inside their shoes with a layer of newspaper. Now the feet had something to protect them at least. The little boys thanked Mother solemnly when they left. "Come and visit us when the war is over," they said. Mother sighed. Would it ever be over? She was going back to work when she noticed Joris wandering about as if he were looking for something. "Have you seen Freya?" he asked. "No," Mother thought for a moment. "I've been so busy I didn't pay any attention. But I don't think I've seen her all morning." I suppose she thought she'd go for a walk since it's dry again," said Joris, but he began to look anxious. He ran around the place whistling and calling, "Freya! Freya!" "Perhaps she's hidden somewhere to have her pups," said Hildebrand. "I knew a dog who did that. She only emerged when the pups were too big to drown. Quite a smart dog she was." But these are Freya's first puppies, said Joris. She would not do that. She loves us. All that day he wandered around looking for Freya and calling her. Surely she'll come back at night, he said. But even when darkness fell, there was no Freya. Mother would not let Joris go out any more. Wait till morning, she said. Poor Joris tossed and turned. He had horrible dreams. One moment he thought Freya was being shot by the Gestapo. The next it was Leendert who was choking her. And another time in his dream, Freya was drowning in the flood. He awoke, glad they had all been dreams. Perhaps Freya had returned during the night and was waiting at the front door. But there was no sign of her. So that's chapter 19, and chapter 20 is Key's Kip. So I will see you guys at chapter 20.